So in this section here, we're going to be discussing in DMA 50, section 7. It's not a very long section because a lot of this stuff kind of carries over. So if you saw the clip for section 6, it's a little bit of a carryover. And if you already done the previous sections, it's fairly simple. The first few problems is nothing to it. It's been exactly what you've been doing. The same thing. You just put this equation into your calculator, grab 2 points, click the graph, and just make the graph. There's no um, special points you have to choose. You don't have to choose the intercepts like in the previous section when you had to choose just the intersections to graph. This one here doesn't ask for the intersections. Um, I would suggest you still go through and find the y-intercept and plot that first. So whatever point it falls on the y, which is going to be 0, comma some number, plot that one, and then the next one it really doesn't matter. But if you want to stay consistent and you get the two points that graph on the x and y axis, I would recommend that just to stay consistent. But you will need to go ahead and find the y-intercept, graph that one first, and then graph your next point. So that will actually take you through 1 through 8. Question 9 has a different kind of format and example, so I want to kind of go over what the equation of form means, ax plus by equals c. The example shows you this point slope form of the equation, and it works it out using this point slope form. I'm going to stay consistent with the y equals mx plus b like I've been discussing in all my videos. Again, just want to re-emphasize, both of them mean the exact same thing. You'll get to the same answer just in different ways. So if you want to click on view the example and follow the way they did it, and you've seen this is point slope is easier, it's fine. But I'm not going to be doing point slope. I'm going to stay with the y equals mx plus b and show you an example of that one. So let me grab this problem. I think I already have it set up already. So it should be one of these up here. So this is the same problem from being example. Again, they show you how to do the point slope, but I'm not going to do this way. I'm going to stick with the same thing of y equals mx plus b. Again, whatever method you choose is up to you. So for this problem here, they actually told you what the slope is, which is great. So there's less work we have to do to figure out on the problem. So we'll just go ahead and throw in the slope, y equals 10x plus b. For this one here now, they gave us an ordered pair now. So the ordered pair now is going to help us find the y-intercept, which is b. Remember, b stands for y-intercept. You always need 2 additional points to plug in for x and your y to solve for b, and that creates our new equation. So let's go ahead and do that now. Y is going to be 7, so we put 7 is equal to 10 times x, which is also 7, plus b. If we do the math, 10 times 7 gives you 70, so I have 7 equals 70 plus b. Then I'm going to subtract 70 on both sides. That cancels, so b is actually going to equal to negative 63. So we have our b, we have our slope, which is m. Now we're ready to just put it back into the equation. Y equals mx plus b. So y equals mx minus 63. Because that's a minus sign here, we're going to put minus here. So remember, once you find your m and your b, you're finished with the slope intercept equation, but now we have to put it into this form, ax plus by equals c. So notice here, I need both my x and my y to be on the left side of my equal sign, and just the number to be on the right side. So here's my equal sign. Let's move the negative 10x over by subtracting. These cancel. So on this side now I have negative 10x plus y is equal to negative 63. And if you want to go ahead and change the sign, because normally we have the first term to always be positive. So just go and change all the signs and flip them. Our final answer is going to be 10x minus y is equal to 63. So is it in that form? Ax plus by equals c. So that's what you need to do for these types of problems here. Once you get it into the y equals mx plus b, find your m and your b, move the final step. I call it the final step. Taking this guy here, this term, and moving it over here by changing the sign is our final step. And then it puts it into the form that they're looking for. So if I go back to do an example problem, here's my 10 and 7, and I go all the way down to the end. Notice they have the exact same answer as we did. Now they kept the negative in front. Like I said, it does not matter. You should get it. You will get it right both ways if you put it in with the negative in front or flip it to here. It doesn't matter. But you notice that we still get the negative 10x plus y equals to negative 63. Negative 10x plus y equals to negative 63. So both of these answers here is going to work for us. So going through the problems here, this is what you need to look out for. If it has this form here, then we need to do that final step. These problems here, they don't have that ax plus by. So once you get into the y-intercept form at the bottom, but this one here didn't actually have a slope. So when it doesn't have a slope, then you don't need to write the mx. But this, once you get into this form here, you're done. Y equals form. So however, when you get to these problems here, ax plus byc, make sure you do that final step by moving the ax over the equal sign and onto the front. Let's move over to number 13. Now notice here, we're going to do the same thing. However, they did not give us the slope, nor did they give us the y-intercept. So this is going to require us to do a little bit more work. I think I already have this one also set up. It's right here. So for this one here, we're going to go ahead and put it into our slope intercept our slope formula. And I'm going to do my box method like I showed you in the other video to make sure my negatives are not confusing to me. So remember, this is y2 minus y1 x2 x1. So y2, this is going to, you can help if it's helpful, put the x's y1, 2, and y2 up on the top of it so you know where to place what. So the first one is going to be negative 4 minus the 10, and then we're going to do negative 9 minus the negative 8. So negative 4 minus 10, that's going to be negative 14. And negative 9 minus a minus, so that means that goes to plus plus. So that's going to be a negative 1 on the bottom. Two negatives make a positive, so my slope is going to equal to 14. You do not have to leave it as a fraction. You can we know 14 divided by 1 is just 14, and you can just write that as your slope. So we're almost there, almost done. So what our y equals mx part is, remember the two letters that we're looking for. We're looking for our m and we're looking for our b. We got our m, we just need to figure out what our b is. So let's put in the m, which we found, y equals 14x plus b. And now we need to choose in y and an x ordered pair to figure out what our b is. Up on the top part, it does not matter which one you actually would choose for the problem. That absolutely does not matter. You can choose the first set or you can choose the second set. Since we have our calculator, it doesn't matter if you have big numbers or small numbers in the problem. So while the calculator is loaded, let me go ahead and just finish up putting in the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the first one. Y is supposed to be 10 is equal to 14 times -8 plus b. If we put this in our calculator, 14 times -8 gives us a 100 negative 112 plus b is equal to 10. So I'm going to move the 110 over by adding. These cancel. B is going to be equal to 122. So now that we have our m and our b, we just place it back into the problem. So y equals 14x plus 122. Remember our final step? We want to box in the first term here with the x, the slope, bring it to the front and change the sign. So negative 14x plus y is equal to 122. And if you want to write it without the negative in front, just make it 14x minus y equal to minus, and you go back and change all the signs. So this gives us our ax plus by is equal to c. So these were the two order pairs I got it from. We do all the math. And we get the negative 14 plus y is equal to 122. And notice they used the point slope formula. So they plugged it into a point slope formula and did the exact same thing, and see how we both got to the same exact answer. So whatever makes more sense to you, go ahead and pull that out and use that. Let's go to the next problem, 14. So this one here, we're going to go back to the undefined, and for the slope, remember what we was on. If you aren't familiar with how to find the slope, if it's undefined or zero, vertical line, horizontal line, go back to clip number DMA's section 6, DMA 50 section 6, and watch that clip to know what the how to find the slope for undefined in vertical and horizontal lines. But for instance, for this one here, we know that the slope here is going to be undefined. What does undefined mean for the slope? If we do a quick recap, an undefined slope is where we see the word vertical, because remember, inside the word vertical we don't see any zeros or O's, so that means we can't find it. So the slope should be undefined. So we know that this slope must be vertical. In order for it to run vertical, remember what we discussed too, that it has to be x equals some number in order to run vertical. And it has to be for horizontal, it has to be y equals some number to run horizontal. So we know, since this problem here has to be a vertical line, we know the answer should incorporate something with an x equals. There's no x and y, it's just the x by itself and it's just the y by itself when we're dealing with vertical and horizontal. So since the problem is x for vertical, we know it has to be, the equation has to be x equals some number. So going back to the problem, I can eliminate c because it has an x and a y, and we know for slope undefined is either going to be horizontal or vertical. And we can also eliminate b because it's going to be y equals. Y equals is horizontal. And what are we looking for? For this one here, we want something that's going to be undefined. Horizontal lines, the slope is actually going to be 0. So we can eliminate b and c. So now all we're looking at is A and D because it has that x equals that we just discussed here. X equals some number. So should it be x equals 3 or should it be x equals negative 4 over 5? Well, it said it must go through this point. Which one of these points is considered to be x? First one is always x, second is always y. So because the x equals negative 4 over 5 is just that simple, that's going to be our answer for this problem. The next one is going to be 16. This one here acts as the same thing, but this time here, the line must pass through 3, 4, the point 3, 4, and it has to be parallel to the x-axis. So what does that mean when it needs to be parallel to the x-axis? If I write my x and y axis, how do we draw a line that's going to be parallel to the x-axis? Well, guess what? It has to run horizontal. It has to run horizontal in order to be parallel to the x-axis. And what does the line look if it's horizontal? It has to be, the equation must be y equals form. So if it's in y equals form, I can eliminate A and I can get rid of D. It's either going to be y equals 4 or y equals 3 because it has to be in the y equals form. But it must pass through this point. Which one of these is y? The 4 is the y, so the answer for this one has to be the second one on B. Last two examples I want to go through is number 17. So for 17, I want to find an equation, and this time we're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form when the line goes through -8 and -7, but must be perpendicular to the y-axis. So what does the line have to look like in order to be perpendicular to the y-axis? So let's draw x and y again. Remember, for order to be perpendicular, it has to form a complete 90-degree angle when it meets. So it has to be running in for the to be perpendicular to the y-axis. It must be running this direction. So this is the y-axis, and the line runs here. So in order for it to be here, it needs to be in y equals some kind of y equals form to be parallel to the y-axis. I'm sorry, perpendicular to the y-axis. So here's the example, -5 here, perpendicular to it. They do the point slope, but if you go back and just do the same thing and do the y equals mx plus b, you'll find out to be the same thing. So once you put in this point into the y equals mx plus b form, we get that the answer should be y equals -5 for the be our answer. And the last one, 19 is what I wanted to go through. So this one here got 3 parts to it, and I think the viewing example does a good job of breaking it down. The first thing we need to find is the 2 order pairs for this problem here. And the mistake that a lot of students do is they make 1998 and 1507 our first order pair, and 2006, 1459 our next order pair. And that's what you should not do. You need to make sure your x's are the actual number of years. So since we started in 1998, this first order pair is going to be 0. And then with the daily numbers of daily newspapers is 1507. That's our first order pair. The second order pair, well, how many years went from 1998 to 2006? If we subtract and find the difference, that's going to be 8. So 8 is going to be our first part, and then the 1459 is going to be our next part. So once again, do not place 1998 here and 2006 here. Do not do that for this problem. Put the actual number of years that we're discussing in our X spot and then the total papers in the second one. We have our two ordered pairs now. Now we need to figure out the equation. So back what we discussed before, since we have our two ordered pairs, you do method one as far as figuring out the slope. And then once we figure out the slope, we take one of these ordered pairs. I would suggest you use the first one because it has a 0. It makes things a lot easier when you plug it back into the problem. And this is actually considered to be the y-intercept. So with the y-intercept, we know that whatever is the y is actually going to go into our equation as b. So here we have our slope, which is -6, and 1507, which is our first problem here for our y-intercept. And this is going to be the slope equation form. So now we have our equation. We should be able to determine part C fairly easily. They said we want to know how many newspapers is going to be in 2003. So how many years went from 1998 to 2003? 5 years went. We take this 5, plug it in for the x, times it by -6, which gives us -30, plus and add 1507, and it should give us a total number of years of 1477. So in 2003, there'll be 1477 numbers of newspapers. So this is the conclusion of this lecture of section 7. Just let me know if you have any questions or concerns with the remaining part, any part of this section.